Everyone in the room laughed at her like she was a joke. But what they didn't know was someone in that crowd saw an angel, not a punchline. And that man was about to change her life forever. Emily Dawson stared at the bathroom mirror, adjusting the pearl clip in her soft brown hair. Her dress was modest, simple light blue cotton with a ribbon at the waist. It wasn't what most girls would wear to a party like this, but she didn't have anything else, and even if she did, she wouldn't feel like herself in it. Her fingers trembled slightly as she whispered to herself, "It's just one night. Just smile." Emily, her roommate, Chloe Rivera, pushed open the door behind her. Chloe was everything Emily wasn't: glamorous, confident, and effortlessly social. Her dress shimmered under the hallway light, and her heels clicked with every step. "Come on, Em, you'll be fine. You need to loosen up, live a little. It's not a nun's retreat," Chloe teased with a wink. "Besides, you never know who you might meet." Emily gave a small smile but said nothing. The truth was, this party terrified her. She had grown up in a quiet Midwest town, raised by her single father after her mother passed. She worked part-time at a local library and spent her weekends volunteering at a senior home. Her world was books, music, and solitude. She'd never had a boyfriend, never gone out drinking. And yes, she was still a virgin. Not because she was ashamed of her body, not because she didn't want to fall in love someday, but because she hadn't found someone who truly saw her yet. Someone who didn't just want to take but to stay. The party was hosted in a breathtaking mansion overlooking the city skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows, gold-trimmed staircases, live music, and fountains that seemed like they belonged in a palace. Emily walked in like a ghost. No one noticed her. No one cared. Chloe disappeared the second they stepped through the doors, drawn like a magnet toward the crowd of influencers and Ivy League types. Emily moved toward the side of the room and sat near a marble pillar, sipping water. She wasn't jealous, just out of place. People laughed, danced, took selfies, and clinked glasses. None of it felt real. Then it happened. A group of well-dressed guys approached, led by Tyler Grant, the son of a luxury hotel tycoon. Tyler was rich, charming, and heartless. He smirked as he saw Emily sitting alone. "Well, look what we have here. A little lost angel," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Don't think I've seen you round before," Emily offered, a polite smile. "I'm just visiting, with my roommate." Tyler leaned closer. "You look like the kind of girl who spends more time with books than boys." His friends chuckled. "I mean, let me guess." He paused dramatically. "You've never even been with a guy before, huh?" The air changed. A few heads turned. The music kept playing, but the laughter grew louder. Emily's throat tightened. She said nothing. The silence was all the confirmation Tyler needed. "I knew it," he said loudly. "She's a virgin." In this crowd, more laughter. Phones tilted upward. Someone was filming. Emily stood up, her cheeks burning with shame. "Excuse me," she whispered. But Tyler wasn't done. "No need to run. We should celebrate this rare discovery. Who wants to buy her a drink? Or maybe she's waiting for Prince Charming." It hurt. Not because she was ashamed of who she was, but because no one stood up for her. She pushed past the crowd, nearly tripping as she fought back tears, searching for the exit. And that's when the room fell silent. Enough. It was quiet but commanding, sharp as glass. Everyone turned to see a man walking down the staircase, dressed in a crisp black suit, no tie, his presence almost unreal. He had strong features, messy dark hair, and piercing blue eyes that looked directly at Tyler. "She doesn't owe you an explanation," the man said. "And if you had half the class your money thinks you give you, you'd know that." Tyler scoffed. "Who even are you?" But someone whispered, "That's Ethan Marlowe." The name sent a ripple through the room. Ethan Marlowe, the elusive tech billionaire. Young, reclusive, powerful, owner of several companies, including a new foundation for women's education. No one ever saw him at parties. And now he was here. For her. Ethan walked up to Emily, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low and sincere. She nodded, barely. "Come with me," he said softly. And without waiting for permission from the crowd, he led her past the judgmental stares, past the people who laughed, and out to the balcony. The city lights sparkled behind them. The music faded. He turned to her. You didn't deserve that. Any of it. Emily looked at him, confused. Why did you stand up for me? Because I've seen that look before. He said, the feeling of being in a room full of people and still being completely alone. Tears welled in her eyes, not from shame this time, but from the unexpected kindness. And that was the moment her life began to change. Not because a billionaire noticed her, but because for the first time someone truly saw her. Asterisk she never imagined. The man who saved her from humiliation would be the one to open doors she never even knew existed. But as the wind whispered across the balcony, and his eyes stayed locked on hers, not with pity, but with genuine concern, Emily realized this night wasn't just a disaster. It might be a beginning. Emily stood frozen beneath the night sky, her breath catching in her throat as the city lights shimmered in the distance. The murmurs from inside were fading now, replaced by the quiet hum of the world outside the mansion. She could still feel the heat of shame on her cheeks, but standing next to Ethan, it was slowly replaced with something else. Safety, strength. He hadn't said much, just enough to silence a room full of judgment, just enough to remind her that sometimes silence could be stronger than noise. And now, he looked at her with an expression she hadn't seen in a very long time. Respect. I'm sorry that happened, Ethan said finally, his voice gentle. You shouldn't have had to go through that. Emily shook her head slightly. You don't need to apologize. It's not your fault. I know, he replied. But it's my house. That made her blink. He nodded, the faintest smirk tugging at his lips. Yeah. Tyler was a guest. I rarely host these things. Tonight was an exception. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't just some rich man. He was the owner of the mansion, the one everyone had whispered about, and she had stood humiliated in front of him. Just moments ago. I shouldn't have come, she whispered. Why not? He asked. Because I don't belong here. I'm not like them. She hesitated, forcing the next words out. I'm just a girl from a small town who reads too much and still believes love is supposed to mean something. There was silence, but not the uncomfortable kind. The kind that felt like listening. Good, Ethan said softly. Don't let them make you believe that's a weakness. Her eyes met his. He didn't look away. Suddenly, the doors behind them opened and Chloe came out. Her face flushed from champagne and embarrassment. Emily, there you are. I was looking everywhere. Her eyes widened when she saw who Emily was standing with. Mr. Marlowe, she said, instantly switching to a polished tone. I didn't realize you knew Emily. We just met, Ethan said casually, his gaze never leaving Emily's. But some people leave an impression quickly. Chloe faltered, clearly confused. She glanced between them and then back at the party. I should probably get back inside. Are you coming? Emily hesitated. But Ethan answered for her. Actually, she's staying out here. If that's all right. Chloe forced a smile, then turned and left, her heels echoing across the patio. The moment she was gone, Ethan turned back to Emily with a kind expression. I know what it feels like to be the one on the outside, he said. I didn't grow up with money either. I earned my first job cleaning offices at night while going to school in the mornings. Emily raised an eyebrow. Me. I didn't always have this suit, or the company, or the reputation. But I had something better, my mother's belief that I was worth more than people thought. There was a stillness in his voice, like he was remembering something sacred. I see that same strength in you. Emily felt her chest tighten. No one had ever said something like that to her, not her professors, not her peers, not even her friends. Most people just saw a quiet girl with too many books and a few stories to tell. But he saw something else. Can I show you something? Ethan asked. She nodded cautiously. He led her through a side hallway, away from the chaos of the party, into a private library behind glass doors. The moment they stepped inside, she gasped. It was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Shelves that touched the ceiling, ladders that slid across mahogany rails, rare editions with gilded spines and titles she'd only read about in magazines. You love books, right? He asked. Yes, she breathed. This is magical. It's my favorite part of the house, he said. I come here when the world gets too loud. She wandered to a shelf and ran her fingers over the spines. You collect these. I rescue them, he said. From auctions, from places that would rather see them rot in basements. Every book has a story. Just like people, Emily looked at him. So you believe in second chances? I believe in the people everyone else overlooks, he said. Stepping closer, because I was one of them. Something stirred inside her. This man wasn't who she thought he was. He wasn't like Tyler. He wasn't like the people laughing in the ballroom. There was depth here, wounds, wisdom. Why? Did you come to the party tonight if you hate them so much? She asked. Ethan sighed. My foundation funds scholarships. Tonight was supposed to be about announcing a new initiative, but somewhere along the line, the message got lost in the champagne. He looked back at her. You reminded me why I started it. In the first place, her eyebrows furrowed. Me, you're exactly the kind of person I want to help. Someone who doesn't pretend, who doesn't chase approval, who walks into a room of wolves and still keeps her soul. Emily didn't know what to say. The shame from earlier still lingered in her mind, but it was being gently washed away by every word he spoke. You deserve better than how they treated you tonight, Ethan said. She swallowed hard. Most people just laugh. I don't. He pulled out his phone, tapped something, then held it out. This is the application form for our new mentorship program. Full scholarship, career guidance, paid internship. We just opened it. It was going live next week. But I want you to be the first to apply. Emily stared at the screen, then back at him. Why me? Ethan smiled, that rare kind of smile that feels like it could hold up the world. Because I see something in you they were too blind to notice. And just like that, the girl who had been humiliated in front of a crowd realized that the night hadn't broken her. It had introduced her to someone who saw the value in her silence, the strength in her heart, and the dignity she never let them take. The world would never be the same again, not because of him, but because for the first time, she believed in herself. People often say one moment can change everything. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes that moment doesn't shout. It doesn't come crashing in like lightning. Sometimes it begins with a quiet decision. A hand reached out, a truth finally heard. That's how Emily's life started to change, not in front of a crowd, but in the silence that followed. Emily sat in the back seat of the luxury car as the driver wound through the moonlit roads, leading back to campus. The city lights sparkled behind her like forgotten dreams. In her lap, she clutched Ethan's tablet, now hers for the night, open to the scholarship application he had personally offered her. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Part of her still didn't believe this was real. Just a few hours ago, she had been the target of cruel jokes, a face in the background. Now, she was holding something that could change everything. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Mr. Marlowe said to remind you there's no rush, but he believes in you. She blinked, then offered a small smile. Thank you. When she got back to her dorm, Chloe was already asleep, or pretending to be. Emily moved quietly, placing the tablet on her desk. She washed her face, changed into pajamas, and sat on her bed with her knees hugged to her chest, staring into the dark room. She wasn't thinking about Tyler or the others. She wasn't even thinking about the humiliation. She was thinking about the way Ethan had looked at her, not with pity, but with certainty. No one had ever believed in her like that. By morning, she had filled out half the application. Every essay question asked who she was, what she believed in, and what she wanted to do if someone finally opened the door. For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid to answer honestly. In the days that followed, Emily tried to return to her normal routine: classes, library shifts, volunteering at the retirement center on weekends. But something inside her had shifted. She no longer walked with her head down. She started speaking more in class, started smiling more at strangers. People noticed, some with curiosity, others with quiet admiration. Chloe noticed too. Did something happen that night? She asked one morning, sipping her coffee. You were different when you came back. Emily paused. I met someone. Chloe raised an eyebrow. Like a guy? Not like that, Emily said with a soft laugh. Just someone who reminded me I'm more than I thought. Chloe looked puzzled, but said nothing. A week later, Emily received the email. Congratulations. She had been accepted, a full scholarship, paid internship at one of Athens' non-profit organizations, mentorship for a full year, the opportunity to travel, to work on real community projects, to grow. She stared at the screen for a full minute before, covering her mouth with both hands. Then, without thinking, she laughed, a real laugh, the kind that rises from somewhere deep inside you when a part of you that had always been quiet finally starts to sing. She replied immediately with a thank you and confirmation. Not even an hour later, she received another message. It was from Ethan, subject, just checking in body. I heard the news. I'm not surprised. You have a quiet kind of brilliance, Emily. Most people miss it. I'm just glad I didn't. She reread the message twice, heart thudding, then wrote back, thank you. You didn't just change my path. You helped me see that I actually have one. 2 days later, she walked into a sleek office building for orientation. She wore her only blazer, neatly ironed, and carried a notebook filled with questions. She was early, of course. The receptionist smiled. Welcome, Emily. Mr. Marlowe is expecting you upstairs. He wanted to give you a personal tour. Her breath caught again. She had assumed she'd be one of many. The elevator ride was smooth, and when the doors opened, Ethan was there waiting. By the window, phone in hand, dressed more casually than before. A simple gray sweater and dark jeans, but somehow still as composed as ever. You showed up early, he said with a smile. I didn't want to be late, she replied. You remind me of myself, he said. Except I didn't have half your grace at your age. She looked away, cheeks warm. I'm still trying to figure everything out. He handed her a tablet. You'll be working with our education team, mostly reading proposals, helping U.S. find schools and community centers we can partner with. I think you'll be good at it. She nodded. I'd like that. They walked together through the bright, sunlit halls. He introduced her to a few team members. Everyone was kind, professional. No one made her feel small. By the time she sat down at her new desk, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in years. Belonging. That afternoon, she joined a team meeting and offered an idea about a literacy program for inner-city girls. Her voice trembled at first, but by the end, people were nodding. One woman even clapped quietly. After the meeting, Ethan walked by and said, Keep speaking up. They'll listen. She stared at him. Why are you doing all this? He shrugged. Because someone once opened a door for me. It's my turn. But you don't even know me. I know enough, he said. And if you ever feel like you're not enough, remember this: true worth isn't measured by experience or popularity. It's measured by heart. And yours is rare. Later that week, Emily called her father. She told him everything about the humiliation, the balcony, the opportunity, the man who saw her. He listened in silence, then said with tears in his voice, Your mother would be so proud. That night, she looked out her dorm window and whispered, Thank you to God, to fate, to whoever had written her story differently than she expected. And for the first time, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel ashamed. She felt like a girl who had walked through fire, not burned but shaped into something unbreakable. And the world hadn't seen the last of her. Not even close. Some moments stay with you not because they were loud, but because they whispered to your soul, You matter. Emily had heard those words not from someone shouting over a crowd but from a man who spoke them in silence, through action, through belief. And that belief was starting to change everything. The days at Athens Foundation passed in quiet awe. Emily's mornings began with a notebook full of ideas and ended with her fingers tired from typing reports, building community proposals, and reviewing school partnerships. She had been thrown into a world far from her comfort zone, but she found that her calmness, her thoughtfulness, her ability to see details others missed, these were not weaknesses here. They were her strengths. She became known as the one who always listened before speaking, the one who stayed late when no one asked, the one who didn't just work hard but worked with heart. One afternoon, the team gathered in the conference room to review education outreach proposals. A heated debate had broken out between the senior directors over funding a program for teen mothers returning to school. Ethan was at the head of the table, watching, listening. Then, quietly, Emily raised her hand. Everyone turned. I think we're Forgetting who we're doing this for, she said gently, it's not just about numbers or data. These are young women who've already been told by the world that their lives are over. Giving them an education isn't charity, it's restoring their hope. There was a pause. Then someone said, well said. And then Ethan spoke. Let's move forward with the pilot. He looked at Emily with something unspoken in his eyes. Later that day, as she packed up her things, he stepped into her office with a soft knock. I wanted to say thank you, he said. For what? For reminding us of the why. Emily smiled. It's easy to forget sometimes. He leaned against the doorframe. I didn't forget, but it's been a while since someone reminded me. She hesitated, then asked, why did you really start this foundation? He looked down for a moment. Because my sister never got a second chance. She waited. He rarely spoke of his past. She got pregnant at 16. He continued slowly. Everyone turned their back on her. Schools, family, friends. She had to raise her daughter alone. And she did. But it broke something in her. Something the world never apologized for. Emily's heart ached. She died when she was 29. He finished. Not because she was weak, but because life never gave her space to breathe. Silence fell between them. I'm so sorry, Emily said, her voice trembling. I promised her I'd build something, he said. Something she would have needed. Something her daughter might need one day. Emily stepped forward. You kept that promise. His eyes met hers. Not yet. But maybe now I'm closer. Their connection deepened in that moment. Not romance, not yet. Something pure. A meeting of pain and purpose. A shared understanding that some hearts recognize each other not by how they look, but by what they've survived. That weekend, the foundation hosted a youth summit at a local school. Emily volunteered to run a workshop on storytelling and identity. She stood in front of a room filled with high school girls, her palms sweating. Hi, she began. My name's Emily, and not long ago, I was where you are now, trying to figure out who I am, where I belong, and if I even matter in a world that moves too fast to notice people like me. The room quieted. I used to think being quiet meant being invisible, that being inexperienced meant being unworthy. But someone reminded me that worth doesn't come from what you've done, it comes from who you are. One girl in the front row wiped a tear. Another whispered, that's me, after the session. The girls hugged her. One slipped her a note that read, thank you for saying what I've never been able to. Ethan was standing by the doorway when she walked out, eyes soft. You're good at that, he said. At what? Turning truth into healing. Emily smiled, her heart full. I'm just sharing what I needed to hear myself. That night, she received a text from Ethan. Dinner tomorrow, nothing fancy. Just curious to know who Emily Dawson is when she's not saving the world. She stared at the message, then typed, only if you promise to tell me who Ethan Marlowe is when he's not carrying it. He replied in seconds, deal. And for the first time in a long time, Emily didn't feel like the girl who had been mocked at a party. She felt like someone on the edge of a new beginning, not because of a man, but because a mirror had finally shown her what she'd never dared to believe. She had always been enough. She just needed the right light to see it. Sometimes healing doesn't look like forgetting what hurt you. Sometimes it's remembering it without flinching, walking into the memory with your head high, and knowing it doesn't own you anymore. That's what Emily was beginning to understand, that dignity isn't given, it's reclaimed, and hers had quietly returned the moment she stopped needing the world's permission to feel worthy. The restaurant wasn't loud, but it was alive. A cozy space tucked between two quiet streets downtown, where soft jazz played from hidden speakers and the waiters knew their regulars by name. Ethan had chosen it carefully, not for show, but for peace. Emily arrived right on time. Her dress was simple, but beautiful cream-colored linen with buttons down the front and a woven belt at the waist. It was the kind of thing that made her feel like herself, not someone trying to be noticed. Ethan stood as she walked in. You look like spring, he said, without hesitation. She smiled. That's the nicest way anyone's ever told me I look pale. He chuckled. That wasn't what I meant. They sat by the window, outside. Fairy lights wrapped around the trees, making the evening glow. Inside, the conversation flowed with surprising ease. Ethan told her about his childhood growing up, with little, watching his mother juggle 3 jobs and still find time to make pancakes on Sundays. He talked about failing his first startup, and how the failure taught him more than success ever could. Emily listened, wide-eyed, not because he was a billionaire, but because he was real. Every word felt like a brick in the path between them. She shared her own stories too, about her father, who read her poetry instead of fairy tales, about the tiny library in her hometown where she spent summers cataloging books no one borrowed anymore, about the feeling of never quite fitting in, even when she smiled. And then, in a quiet moment, she asked, "Why me, Ethan? Why that night?" He looked at her, thoughtful. "Because you didn't try to be anyone else, and still, you stood tall. Even when they laughed." She looked down. "I didn't feel tall, but you were," he said. "Most people collapse under that kind of humiliation. You walked out with your dignity intact. That takes more strength than most people have in a lifetime." A silence settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that holds space for truth. The waiter came and went. Their food arrived: roasted vegetables, warm bread, and a pasta dish Ethan swore by. When dinner ended, Ethan insisted on walking her back to her dorm. The night was cool, and she didn't want it to end just yet. They walked slowly, side by side. At one point, she paused, staring at a bookstore across the street. "I used to dream of working in a place like that. Why not do it now?" he asked. She shrugged. "Dreams feel too fragile sometimes. Like if you speak them out loud, they'll vanish." "Then speak them louder," Ethan said. "So they know you're serious." She laughed. "You always say things like that." "Like what?" "Like the world isn't broken, like people can still make it better." He stopped walking. "That's because I've seen it happen. I've seen someone like you take a moment that could have broken them and turn it into light." She went quiet. Then, softly, "You know, I never answered." "Them?" "Who?" "Tyler, his friends, that night, when they asked, when they tried to humiliate me. I never denied it. I didn't defend myself." "You didn't have to," Ethan said gently. "You never owed them that." She looked at him. "But I did feel ashamed." "Shame is the lie they put on you," he said. "Truth is what you carry alone until someone else finally sees it too." He looked at her, then really looked. "You have nothing to be ashamed of, Emily. Not your past, not your choices, not your silence. You're whole, just as you are." Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't look away. When they reached her building, she turned to him. "Thank you for everything." Ethan didn't move. He didn't reach for her hand or ask to come in. He simply said, "You've got more to do, Emily. This is just the beginning." And with that, he left. That night, Emily didn't cry. She sat at her desk, opened her notebook, and wrote down her dream: start a bookstore, one with a cafe, a reading corner, and scholarships for kids like me. It was the first time she'd ever written it down, not just as a wish, but as a plan. Because now, she believed it was possible. Because someone had believed in her first. Sometimes, the people who change your life don't arrive with fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes they come quietly, like a whisper in the dark, reminding you that you were never broken, just waiting to be seen. That was Ethan's gift to Emily. Not wealth, not romance, but recognition. The kind that rebuilds a person from the inside out. It had been for months since that unforgettable dinner. The seasons had changed, and so had Emily. She still lived in the same tiny dorm, still studied late into the night, still brewed cheap coffee in her secondhand kettle. But something was different. There was a new lightness to her steps, a quiet strength in her voice. She had started to believe in something she'd never dared to before, her own story. And then, one morning, she received a letter. Not an email, not a text, a real, handwritten letter in an envelope with golden edges. It was addressed simply, "Miss Emily Carter, room 305, Scholars Residence, Bayside University." She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Dreams matter, yours especially. This is not a gift. This is an investment in you." Attached is a deed. 41 Oakwood Street is now yours. Build the bookstore. Share the light. On her hands trembled. She blinked and read it again. 41 Oakwood Street. The bookstore she had stared at that night. The one she had whispered about like a child, admitting a secret. The one she had scribbled into her notebook with stars beside it. It was hers. No cameras, no press, no dramatic reveal. Just a quiet act of belief. The following weeks moved like a dream. With help from a small team Ethan had quietly sent her way, architects, designers, volunteers, Emily began the transformation, not just of a building, but of herself. She chose the colors, soft walnut wood, ivory walls, and golden lamps. She designed the layout, cozy chairs by the windows, shelves full of donated books, and a hope corner with journals for visitors to write their stories. The day the sign went up, she stood in the street and cried. The quiet light, books and dreams, it was everything she had never said out loud, now written in wood above her. Opening day came on a chilly Saturday morning. The line stretched around the block. Students, professors, locals, even children with wide eyes and sticky fingers came pouring in, some for books, some for coffee, some just to sit where the air felt different. Midway through the day, a girl came in alone, maybe 18, nervous, clutching a notebook to her chest. She walked up to Emily and whispered, "They make fun of me too." Emily didn't ask who. She just pulled up a chair. "You're safe here," she said gently. "You always will be." And the girl smiled, eyes wide with the same quiet hunger Emily once carried. Across the room, the front door opened. Ethan stood there. No suit, no entourage, just jeans, a knit sweater, and that same quiet gaze. They locked eyes. For a moment, the noise faded. He walked over slowly, picked up a book, and held it out. "Signed copy?" he asked, grinning. She laughed, eyes shimmering. "You don't even know what it's about." "I know enough," he said. "It's about a girl who never gave up." She signed the book. "To the man who saw light before I ever did." As he turned to leave, she called after him, "Ethan." He looked back. "I used to think the worst day of my life was when they mocked me for being different. And now?" he asked. "Now I know. It was the first page of the best chapter I've ever lived." He nodded, said nothing more. He didn't need to. As the door shut behind him, the little bell chimed, and Emily stood there, not broken, not ashamed, not invisible, but whole. She had not just survived, she had become someone else entirely. The girl they once laughed at, now the woman they lined up to hear from. And in her bookstore, under the glow of warm lights and soft pages turning, hope was no longer a dream. It was a story, hers, and it had only just begun.